What's up, Algebra 2? Today we're going to take on what always seems to be one of the hardest parts of the chapter on trigonometry, which is can you take a graph and turn it into an equation? So instead of doing 4 problems in a row, I'm going to do the first piece of all 4. And then I'm going to do the second piece of all 4. So we can really master each piece as it comes along. So again, we're trying to make an equation on all these. There's going to be one thing that you can do right off the bat, which is going to make it a whole lot easier to figure out all those pieces and parts, and that's, can you draw the midline? We haven't talked about this midline yet, we haven't talked about that vocab, but if we can draw the center line, the midline through the wave, it's going to make everything else a whole lot easier for us. So let's go ahead and take a look at where the midline falls on all of these, and we can go in any order, right? Here we've got the top is 15, the bottom is 5, the middle is at this 10, so we're going to go ahead and draw a midline right at that 10. Okay? We've got the top is at 8, the bottom's at 2 here of the wave. You can also just do a quick average, add those together. 8 plus 2 is 10, cut it in half, that's 5. 5 is going to be your midline, so I'll go in between the 6 and the 4 at 5. Go ahead and draw that midline there. Right here, the midline is at the x-axis. So we'll just go ahead and draw it right there at 0. And the midline is pretty clear, it's at 1 right here. Even if you just drew it first, and you go, oh, there it is at 1. As long as we can draw the midline, it's going to make everything else easier, right? So we go to make our equations here. We've got y equals, and the first thing that comes up is called amplitude. We've dealt with this in the earlier chapters, but we called it stretch factor. As a parabola maybe stretched a little bit taller, or an absolute value v-shape stretched a little bit taller or skinnier. So we're going to see how much does the graph stretch from the midline. So if you can tell, the midline was key to have that first. So how much does the graph stretch from the midline? From 0 it stretches up to 3. It also stretches down to -3, but it doesn't matter if it stretches up or down. We just know how much does it stretch, and that is 3. So it stretches 3 up or 3 down. We're going to have 3 times in our equation. That 3 is called the amplitude. It also works the same way as we've dealt with stretch factor. From this 1, this is just going to stretch up 1 spot here. So our equation could be 1 times. We know that 1 times anything is going to be the same as whatever else is there, so we don't really have to put it, but we'll put it there because we really understand what it means. On this one we have our midline at 5, and it stretches up to 8. So it stretches 3, that's called our amplitude. Y equals 3 times, and then we'll fill in the rest. And here we've got our graph starting at 10, the midline's at 10, it stretches up to 15, that's a stretch of 5, or an amplitude of 5. So we're going to have y equals 5 times. What's up next is sine or cosine. Sine waves always start at the midline, so again it's key to have that midline right off the bat. We can see this wave starts at the midline, that's going to be a sine. We can see that this wave starts at the midline, that's going to be a sine. We can see that this wave starts above the midline, that's going to be a cosine. We can see that this right here does not start at the midline, it starts up above, that's going to be a cosine. What comes next after all these is called the frequency. We haven't dealt with frequency. Frequency is how many waves happen in a full cycle. How many waves happen by 360 degrees, right? Sometimes we don't have 360, we don't have 360. Ooh, we have 360. This would be an easy one to start with. How many waves happen by 360? 1, 2. So we're going to have cosine 2 times, cosine of 2x. How many waves happen by 360? Oh, we don't have 360, that's all right. We know that 2 waves happen by 180. We're going to have another 2 for the next 180, so it's going to be 4 times. Is the sine wave is going to happen 4 times by 360 degrees. This one's a little bit tricky. If we look from 30 to 390, that's actually 360. So there's just 1 wave there. We'll have 1x there, 1 wave, 1 sine wave. And here we have a wave that happens from 0 to 90. So we'd have another one that would happen by 90, another one by 90. We would have to have 4 waves of 90 would get us all the way around to 360. So 4 waves. So interesting, like these both have 4x, but we don't see 4 waves. This one we only see 1 wave. Here we only see 2. We don't actually see 4 waves. That's okay. How many would happen by 360? And that's called our frequency. That's called our frequency in there with the x. Also in there with the x, we also have to look if any of the graphs have shifted left or right from their starting point. Is there a horizontal shift? This one starts right on the y-axis. This one starts right on the y-axis. This one starts right on the y-axis. This one starts over a little bit. It starts at positive 30. What you can do to make that happen with this 1x is put the x in parentheses. And you always do the opposite of what is in the parentheses. So this starts at a positive 30. I'm going to put in a negative 30. Right? If I did plug 30 in, 30 minus 30 is 0. It kind of takes me to that start, that new starting point of that graph. So again, anything that's inside the parentheses does the opposite. Like this says 4 times x, but what's 360 divided by 4? Boom, 90, right? On this one, this says 2 times x, but what's 360 divided by 2? 180, and hey look, there's a wave by 180, right? This says times 4, we're going to divide by 4, 360 divided by 4, that's 90, and boom, there is one wave that happens by that 90 mark. So anything in the parentheses is opposite. The last part of all these is easy. It's the midline. What's the vertical shift? How much did it go up or did it go down? And we'll just take a look at all these. This one is at 0. I can put plus 0. Do I have to put it? No. Anything plus 0 is still itself. What's the midline here? Comes over to 1, plus 1. That's my vertical shift, up 1. Right in the middle of 6 and 4 is 5. We talked about that earlier. Plus 5. It's going to be my midline. And right here we can see it's at 10. We're going to have a midline or a vertical shift up 10.